you have no excuse.
Dude, I got so much flack when somebody found that out. Like, this is all money grab, and this is all like we're just trying to make money off of them.
Nothing moves without money.
But I'm also trying to build something, and that thing that's trying to be built is
Evan Turner, heads up, FPV. Welcome to the show. Dude, I appreciate you coming on. This is super exciting for me. I've been a huge fan for as long as I've known drone racing. You've been like top dog. I mean, you really are the cream of the crop. Multi-GP 2018, 2019, 2021 world champion, World Cup champion 2018, 2021. Two-time DR World Champion 2020 and 2021 seasons. You race in the Drone Champions League with Quad Force One, co-owner of a very successful, highly regarded drone racing brand, 533, which is today you just mentioned is its 5th birthday. Congratulations on that.
thank you.
Super exciting. You're a content creator yourself. You've worked with incredible brands. You were at the World Series. You've worked with the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. You've done Hollywood films. Is there anything that you still want to accomplish in your career that you don't think you've done so far?
I try not to get fulfillment from results necessarily, because that kind of sets you up for disappointment. I enjoyed the process. I enjoy the grind of trying to get better, trying to find new things to climb the ladder in. If you focus on the process, then there's no limit, and there's also no when you lose, you don't beat yourself when you're down. Everybody does, but ever since kind of enjoying the process, I'd say I don't think there's a limit, because when I fail, it's okay, and when I win, it's also okay. You just got to keep going. I like the process. So who knows what I'll get into next, but I like climbing ladders. Ladders.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know that you grew up racing a lot and learning quads with your dad, doing a lot with like RC helicopters and things like that. Do you think that mindset of just trying to focus on progression and your own skill set came from your dad, or like where along the way did that start?
So there was this camp called Clover Creek, and Clover Creek it sounds crazy. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was run by this guy named John, and John Schroeder. And basically he had like an invite-only camp where he invited the 10 best RC airplane pilots from around the country to this camp. And we basically worked on this farm. So we had to maintain this farm of it's like a sod farm. But he was like this legend in the RC airplane world. And basically we would fly planes every day and judge each other, because in an RC airplane competition, it's not like racing. It's more like figure skating, where there's criteria of how to perform the best and everything. And we pretty much would just grind every single day and nitpick each other's flying and technique and everything every single day. And obviously in the process, we became like brothers. But what we learned from that was how to get good at something and how to climb that ladder. And obviously my parents and the values and principles they gave me helped. But I would say, as far as as a kid and getting exposed to it at a young age, I think my first year I was 11. And I went for 5 years, and I was an 11-year-old hanging out with 17 and 18-year-olds, because you could go from 10 to 18. And the first year I got invited, I was 11. And that camp taught me a lot, man. It is learned so many life lessons. We're flying planes, and we didn't realize we were learning these life lessons along the way. But it has applied. All the things I learned there have applied to so much of my life, because of that process of getting better and falling in love with the process and not the results is really what does it. You got to do it when you don't want to, and you got to keep going. And I learned that at that camp, and I credit that to so much of my success now.
I didn't know that. I've done a ton of research on you in preparation for this interview, and I have never heard of that camp before, and that's super cool. Do they still do that?
No. So unfortunately, I have another story. Maverick, who he also went to that camp. That's how we met. So it has pretty much, if you go back in the history of it, everyone who went to that camp has gone and done something career-wise. There's been super successful businessmen and drone pilots and airline pilots, and it's really cool. But unfortunately, the reason I stopped going when I was 16 was the guy who did it, John. He actually passed away. And it was really sad. Again, he was a big mentor in all of our lives. but I know he's proud of all the things we're doing now. And again, I'm still super close with all the guys I went to this camp with to this day. But yeah, it was called Clover Creek, and it was focused again around RC airplane competition known as IMAC. And obviously, I don't do that anymore. But again, the principles I learned from there are what made me who I am today.
Yeah. Well, I'm really sorry to hear about that loss. That's devastating. I want to talk about 533 a little bit.
Yeah.
Celebrating 5 years.
Yeah, it's 5 years of running the business. I'm 21 now. It got started when I was 16, and to see it grow from literally just like a cardboard box full of parts to what it is now, and building thousands of drones out of my parents' basement. Like things have changed a lot. It's been probably the most fulfilling and exciting thing that I've done in my life. Growing a business is like something I've never, I didn't know that I wanted, but I've really come to enjoy it. And the theory of leadership and the concept and the execution of leadership and the vision and all that. Like, I love it. I absolutely love it. And to most businesses don't make it to 5 years. And I feel very lucky to have even made it this far. Obviously, we've had some low times and some high times, but we just keep going. And yeah, I'm super stoked.
Just a quick update. Right after the filming of this episode, I joined 533's affiliate program. You can find some of the best drone racing gear in the industry on their online store. And if you use my link in the description, I get a small kickback at no additional charge to you. If you're interested in helping out the channel, that's a great way to start. And if you're not looking for any new gear but still want to help, get subscribed, hit the like button, because there's many more interviews lined up with some amazing industry professionals and pilots you do not want to miss.
Today we are doing a 5% off sale, and then last night, my throat hurts right now, so we do. I did for the top 20 spenders all time at the store. I did like a personalized video to each one, like, hey, so.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because like I've developed relationships with these people. But I like literally sat and stared at a camera and recorded personalized videos and then cut them and uploaded them all last night. So I was up super late. My voice hurts a little bit, but we're just grateful to the people who've supported us over the years. And it's the least I could do to send a video and say thanks. But yeah, we just kind of are doing like an appreciation day, saying thanks to everybody. And then moving forward for another 5 years.
Yeah, I think the uniqueness of having a really small business is that you're able to have that personal connection with some of your biggest buyers. And that's going to like really set you apart from some of the larger brands out there. But I mean, the fact that it's been successful for 5 years definitely shows that there's leadership from the top down is really important, and that you're doing a great job. So, curious, where did 533 get its name? I don't know if I've ever heard the origin story.
So it's the nerdiest origin story ever. 533 is on all of our drones. Like when you race, everybody always wants to know your rates. Like, what are your rates? And they, it's like, if for those who don't race, maybe it's like a sensitivity on a video game, like Call of Duty or something. Like, how sensitive do you want the stick to be? And mine was 533 degrees per second is what it stands for. And when we were starting the company, we couldn't come up with a name. And that was the thing holding us back, was the name. And I just felt like so stupid. I was like, we have the product, but we don't have a name. Like, a name's holding us back. And I didn't want to name it like Evan Turner and Armando Drones or something like that.
Right.
It was, so somebody kind of brought up the idea of like, people know you from 533, like your rates, because everybody always asks me. So why not? Because it's like kind of, slyly or like, pointing to me, but also like its own thing. It can be made its own brand. So that's where it came from. We've just run with it.
That's so neat. I was unaware of that. Do you still fly with those rates?
On 2 of the 3 axes, yeah. So I got so much flack when somebody found that out. Like, so I used to run it on roll, pitch, and yaw. But as like we've gotten faster, we need more rate on roll to be able to do some of the more technical tracks. So I moved to 633, and I told somebody, and it was like I was the devil, and then I was just a fraud all of a sudden.
That's so
but
funny.
2 of the 3 are still 533.
Yeah,
and maybe we'll have a name change to 633 one day. No, I'm just kidding. That is what that.
We'll do like one day on April Fools, you're gonna like change
Yeah,
it, convince everyone, and then go back to 533 the next
I
day.
like that. I'm gonna put that on the content calendar. I think
That's kind of fun to do something creative on April Fool's Day. So
I like it. I like it.
that's awesome. Yeah, want to talk a little bit more about 533 as well and just like the future of it. Like you guys started, you and Armando, you're 16 years old, trying to start a brand, which is just like mind blowing within itself. Obviously, you had a name in the industry and in the community, but it's been like a huge journey up until this point. What do you think the next 5 years looks like?
It's a good question. I mean, the beginning from the beginning, we wanted to be the biggest and best store in the world,
Wow.
and we're going like that's still the mission. The vision is that, and we're trying to. It's like if you're trying to make $1,000 versus and you're like, okay, I want to make $1,000, and here's the steps to do it. Versus when you're like, I want to make $100,000, or and it doesn't have to be money, but like if I want to run a mile versus you say I want to run 100 miles, you think differently, you think bigger. So I think we've when we started, there was no real vision, and we wanted to I mean, it was like the 533 starting was the most selfish thing ever. Like it was, I wanted better products for me to run while racing. Like there was no
Right.
thinking of other people in this. And then we started to think like we could actually like improve the industry. We could make better things and make people have better experiences and offer, we just came out, one of the big things we just came out with that's been a big success is FPV Pit Stop. And the first like FPV hotline where anybody can call and get tips on how to fly, or if they just want to fly and not focus as much on repairing or building, they can just send their drones in and get them repaired. So it's like an FPV drone repair shop and things. And so I'd say as we go into the next 5 years, thinking more like that, and more for the community as a whole, trying to find the pain points of of the entire community and trying to solve those things. So I think 533 will still very much be a grassroots company trying to make the best products for me and other pilots to go to races and perform at their highest. But in addition to that, there's this whole group of people. If we want to have more people racing, we have to make it easier for those people to get into racing and to stay in racing or to get exposed to FPV drones. So that goes for education, and that goes for beginners and people, and having a resource for them to learn and improve. And we just haven't really documented that too much, I don't think. And so I've started ramping up content creation and doing FPV Pit Stop and all these things. And so I think the next 5 years are really exciting. I think there's gonna be more content, more branding, more services, and just the end goal being to be the one-stop shop of anybody who wants to get into FPV. Have the store, have the repairs, have the ready-to-fly drones, have the custom solutions, and again, because this community and this industry has given me so much that the least I can do is try and give back. Because so I think a lot of people, like there are some people who kind of give us a hard time of trying to grow and say like this is all money grab and this is all like we're just trying to make money off of them. But for one, whatever, like I think bringing people down in any way, I just don't like it. But I think they're looking at it from like a micro lens, in that if we can do things that grow the industry, it benefits everyone. Like we're all on the same team.
Right.
All these companies are on the same team. All these pilots, all these content creators, we're all on the same team. And so I try and be nothing but supportive to our competitors, to other content creators, to anyone, because it's small. And for us to grow this and for us to all be successful, the market cap has to grow. Like we have to grow this together.
Right.
And so my biggest pet peeve these days is just people trying to bring me and other people down. Like we're all on the same team here. And so I'm hoping that through, this vision and this kind of brand of uplifting other people, that it can help make everybody friends, but also help everybody grow and succeed together.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a pastor friend of mine that years ago I was speaking to, and he was talking a lot about the difference between just starting a church or starting a business, whatever the case is, and like starting a movement. And one of the things he mentioned was that stuck with me so much is like nothing moves without money. And especially from like a pastor's perspective, it's really uncomfortable to be talking about money and raising money because that's just a very divisive thing that a lot of people have mixed feelings on. But at the same time, the principle stands that if you're going to start a movement in drone racing, in whatever it is, money is a driving force of it. And so you can sit here all day and say that it's a money grab or we're just trying to, but like without some funds behind it, 533 has done a great job of sponsoring some of the biggest drone racing events out there. And without that, those events might not be able to happen at all. And so because of the work that you guys are doing and so many others in the community, it is becoming a movement as opposed to just like a business or just like don't be small-minded, like look at the larger picture here.
Yeah, it benefits everybody. Like you supporting, even like I think just if you look at yourself as a customer and you supporting a small business or in like a small industry, you supporting that small business doesn't line the pockets of some millionaire. The majority of the time it gets reinvested into making that business and that service better. Any small business that's just trying to rake profit out of every single month, they die because they're not able to keep up with big businesses and other people who are willing to grow. And the vast majority of anything 533 has ever made has gone into improving it and coming out with new products and doubling down and doubling down. Like 533 is just a giant double down from me and Armando. Like every time we get something, we go back in. And that goes for every small business. Every small business that's ever been successful has doubled down. And so we got to support that.
No, I couldn't agree more. So if somebody is trying to get into drone racing or FPV for the first time right now, and they just have no clue where to start, what would be your pitch for like, here's a good starting point?
Yeah, there's a ton of information on the internet. There's a ton. The issue is it's really hard to find a reputable source. You know, there's some like Joshua Bardwell's one, and then there's like UAV Futures and a bunch, but they do so many videos about so many different things. It is really hard, admittedly. It is really hard to know where to start. And also, what you want to get out of FPV changes where you should start. Like, do you want to go into filming? Do you want to go into racing? Do you want to go into flying long range? Do you want to go into cinematography? Like, it's really difficult. So my honest to goodness recommendation would be just get the 7-day free trial of FPV Pit Stop, the bronze one, and that allows you to book a call for free with an FPV expert like me or Armando or anybody on the 533 team, and you can say, hey, I really want to get into FPV. Here's what I want to get out of it. Like, what should I do? Do you have any tips? And it's just like what FPV Pit Stop does is it allows you to just genuinely talk to a professional and just somebody everybody starts somewhere for one. So it's really important to remember that. Like every professional was a beginner at 1.2 and they've gone through all the hardships. And if you can, for free, just call a professional, have a video call where they can share their screen, build links for you, build a cart for you, send you to different sites, like that's so valuable. That is so valuable for free. 30 minutes out of your time, or it could be as long as you want. And then you can go from there. So I think that's a great starting point. Sure, if you don't want to do FPV Pit Stop, find someone online or something that's willing to give you the time of day, and then just, go for it. I'd say if we want to have a small FPV Pit Stop call right now, starting with a simulator is something you're going to hear a lot, but you need a controller to do that. So I think if you give yourself a $200 budget, that's what most people need to get into FPV, because I think to get a remotely quality remote, you need about $100 to $150, something like the Radiomaster Pocket or the Radiomaster Boxer or something like that. And then you need a simulator or two. So maybe you can try out the DRL sim or the Trip Simulator or the DCL sim. There's a bunch. They're all on Steam. They're like $20. And then so with about a $200 budget, you can get an idea of if you like this or not. And if you can pick it up. And then it also makes your experience way cheaper on the back end because you actually know how to fly. And then maybe if money's tight, you can use that time on the simulator to save up to then go for your first drone and a pair of goggles. But it depends what you're trying to get out of it. And that's why I say it's not a cut and dry, buy these things, because if you go into racing, it's different. If you go into freestyle, it's different. If you're, in certain countries, it's different. So that's why having something like FPV Pit Stop as like a thing that actually exists and is accessible and running is, I think, super valuable to, and has been to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's extremely valuable. I can't imagine how helpful that would have been for me when I was first getting into FPV.
Yeah.
And still to this day, I will like reach out to people and be like, so the CCs on the battery means you got to charge at this rate, and it's just like everything's just one step more complicated than it needs to be, but also it's all very important.
Yeah.
So it's really awesome that resource is available.
Yeah.
What would you say alternatively to somebody who has been in drones for years, who is trying to give back to the community? What is a good place, in your opinion, that people could start to be feeding into the community and seeing the world of FPV just growing as a whole?
I would say it's a good question, and I'd say drones are most active, or like the drone community is most active on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Facebook is a big one. Like there's these big Facebook groups like Beginner to FPV, the multi GP racing community. That we at the 533 has a big Facebook group. There's also there's a couple Facebook groups like that, and they're huge, and people are constantly in them asking questions. And like I try and hop in there at least once a day and just try and answer anything I see. Because that's where beginners go. And in addition to that, if you're in a place to be able to make content around new things, like just basically there's just a very small, if you think about the internet as like a library of information, there's a very small section for FPV, because FPV is this vast topic. It's huge. And there's only a small section on it, and then you don't know where to look, and there's all these big words and confusing things. You don't know where to start. So I think I'm trying to encourage more people to make content about what they do and how they're doing what they do in FPV, because we got to make that library bigger. Again, maybe you're not getting paid for every video, or you're not getting a brand deal for every video, but you're growing the community, which will then grow the companies, which will then turn you into a resource that can make brand deals and things. Like, again, going back to the we're all in this together. I think any way that people can give back or make content that benefits others is great.
If you're looking to learn more about drone racing and get involved in the drone racing community, another great free resource is the Drone Racing Network page on Discord. There are channels about racing going on around the world, as well as places for you to show off your own racing content. Additionally, you can ask questions to pro pilots and find members in your local community to race with. It's our one-stop shop for all of your drone racing needs. You can scan this QR code or check the link in the description and get plugged in. One of the unique things about FPV, and I think this is generally true for most things that are like still in the infant stages of being a hobby and of being something that people enjoy doing, is that you can really get whatever you want out of it. You just have to figure that out, and you're going to get as much as you give. And if you're someone who's going to put in the time and put in the hours to get great on the sticks, there's a guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I'll put his Instagram right here. He's from Russia. I've reached out to him. He doesn't speak good English, so I'm trying to work it out to get him on the podcast, but get a translator of sorts. I'm not sure. I'm still figuring that out. He has one hand, and he holds the controller side. You know who I'm talking about?
He blows my mind. It's
Dude.
crazy.
You have no excuse. If this guy can do what he does with a single hand, he literally is moving his pointer finger and pinky independently from one another to fly a drone at incredible speeds around a track.
Crazy.
We have no excuse, like zero excuse on how we shouldn't be amazing. Just somebody who's recently been inspiring me. But I want to jump a little bit into your career, and then also the different leagues and things like that. Something that I'm super passionate about, and also just like constantly on the fence about how I feel about certain things, because I put a lot of value into like production and having things be super palatable. And I struggle with like multi-GP, their vision, I could not agree more with. I love what they're doing. I love that it's like one of the biggest drivers for the FPV community. And then you try to watch one of their races, and if you're there in person, unbelievable. So fun. The vibes are like out of this world. But I tried to show my father-in-law recently, and he really is putting an effort to become interested in the things I'm interested in. And he was like, this is a tough watch. It's just hard when there isn't like that consistent flow of somebody else setting up your quad and somebody else helping get the ball rolling, and then the camera is just like one wide shot, and then all the small FPV footage that's like incredibly grainy and HD0 and all that. But I'm curious, how do you feel about that balance between what MultiGP is doing, which is so awesome for the community, and then what things like DCL or DRL are doing that are high production value, but they are a little bit less involved in the actual community of FPV?
The way I see it is there's two ways to run a race. You can run a race for the spectators, for the pilots.
Yeah.
MultiGP is a league for the pilots, by the pilots. And there's these leagues like DCL and DRL that are for spectators. And I think we need both because there's no way that DCL or DRL can run a race for the pilots and have this crazy high production value. I think it's really hard. The reason it works is because it's like invite only, right? And there's 12 pilots and it's a highly controlled environment and highly planned out and very honestly expensive to do.
Right.
But it's not like you could, for example, if it's your first race, you can go to a MultiGP race, no pressure. If you're having a problem on the line, somebody's going to come out there and help you, get this figured out, let's make this work. And you're sitting there, okay, people are cheering you on. But if you're at a DRL race, like, it's a pro. It's professional. It's the same reason we don't watch Pee Wee football online, on TV. Like, it's different.
Right.
And if you go to a Pee Wee football game, like the coaches are on the field, the parents are on the field, you're getting everybody lined up. Okay, here we go. All right, now go. And that's the way I would and it's for the kids. Like, it's for them to learn the sport and learn how to compete and learn the techniques and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, it's for them to have the best time possible. But when you get to college football or NFL football, it's a different game, right?
Yep.
Like, it is professional, and it's not like it is. There's strict rules, strict guidelines, and it's for a spectator. And so I would say, but then college football and NFL wouldn't exist without Pee Wee and high school. So that's why I think it is super important. And as a spectator, if you're trying to show somebody what drone racing is, you shouldn't show them MultiGP necessarily online. Like, you can go to a race and get a really good idea of what it is. And again, the vibes and everything are so great.
Right.
But if you want somebody to get excited about drone racing, you take them to a DRL, you take them to a DCL. And that's my take on it, because I know you're not the first person to give MultiGP a hard time, and I honestly have been there too. But as I started to see both sides, there's races for spectators, which then gives MultiGP more people, and then MultiGP is creating these better and better and more competitive pilots that then feed the league. So it's a circle. Yeah. But we need both. We 100% need both.
Yeah, I've talked to the guys over MultiGP a couple times, and first of all, just honestly, like, the nicest people I've ever met. Like, incredibly genuine individuals that pretty much do it for free. I mean, nobody is like getting a bag from working at MultiGP, and they have such a heart for not just like the specs of the drones and whatever. Like, that's all secondary to the fact that, like, they see people who struggle to make friends having a thriving community in drone racing, and they see people that have had like all kinds of struggles and stuff finding unity and community in drone racing, which is honestly, like, I feel like that's why we should all love it. That's why I love it. Obviously, I also like the feeling of flying through the air, and like, that's all cool. I'm not like discounting the feeling of FPV. It's amazing. But the fact that there are people who struggle to find their niche in many other things, but for some reason FPV just scratches that itch for people, and there's that unity involved in something that brings us all together. I think MultiGP, more than anybody, has seen that vision and executed on it for years and years to an incredibly successful degree, which is super inspiring. I think they're amazing.
Yeah, MultiGP, or just drone racing as a whole, my dad and I always laugh about it, because like, if you go to a skate park, it's most of the time it's like your generic like skater bros and skater girls, and then you go to like a science fair and it's your typical like scientists or whatever, and it's just I feel like you envision, but there's like stereotypical people, but like the stereotypical drone racer is like a rocket scientist hanging out with the skater bro, and they like both like drones, or like this guy's an
Right.
adrenaline junkie who was a professional motocross rider, and he's hanging out with this guy who like has a patent on like some coding software. Like
Exactly. Yeah,
it
yeah.
really is the craziest way or craziest thing that unifies so many different people, because we like to race drones. And some people like it more for the competition, other people like it more for the tech. But at the end of the day, it brings us together, and it's super special.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. That's a really good way of putting that. Speaking of DRL, February 1st, 2025, there's an event coming up that, just quick plug, I have not been invited to yet, but if you're watching this, you know who you are. Would love that. Anyway, and maybe I'll get a chance to go regardless. But you are going to be back. Correct me if I'm wrong. Actually, I don't know the details, so I'm going to phrase this as a question. You were a pilot for DRL for 2 seasons. Both of those seasons, you are the world champion. Unbelievable feat. And then you choose to take a step back, and you are announcing for the DRL for a couple years.
Yeah.
This season, what is your role?
I'm going to be a pilot. Which is
Come
really
on now.
Yeah, I'm gonna fly. So Heads Up's back in blue. I'm the official, I guess, U.S. Air Force team pilot. I'm stoked. I'm really excited. So coming back on the flight deck, Min Chan or MCK and I are gonna get to fly against each other. We never got to.
I'm so pumped to see that matchup. That is more than anything, and I love the other pilots. I'm excited for whoever's going to be there. They haven't announced the roster yet, but that matchup, and I think I'm definitely not alone in that, is going to be one for the books. And I'm curious on your thoughts on that.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. It is something I'm really excited for, and getting to go back as a commentator was something I really, really enjoyed, and was it was eye opening. But you can't take the competitor out of somebody, right? Like I still wanted to come back and race, and got the opportunity to thanks to DRL and the Air Force, and we're gonna go for it for sure.
Yeah.
As far as that competition between MCK and I, it's gonna be definitely fierce and one for the books. And hopefully there's more races to come where that can play out over a season and everything. But the roster's insane. It's going to be crazy. I know it comes out here soon, actually. And I think once you see the roster, you're going to be even more excited. It's going to be epic.
So stoked. So walk me through last year when I got a chance to go to my first DRL event. I got a chance to talk to Alex FPV as well as Amari, and they've become friends of mine, really awesome guys, and I just have so much respect for them. One thing that they talked about, which really struck me and I didn't think too much about until that point, was the dichotomy of like, they are fierce competitors and they are actually fighting for a world championship and for a spot on the podium, and like it's really, really fierce. But also they're like best friends.
Yeah.
And I know that you and MCK have had an incredible friendship for years, and as well as many of the other pilots. But walk me through what that's like, having somebody that you're so close to, but also you just want to destroy in the pit. Like, what's that like feeling?
A lot of people have asked us that before, of like, what's it like competing against your friends and everything, and like you're friends with them, but then you also want to beat them, and you want. It's not like we don't want the worst for each other. We don't want to we don't want the other person to do bad. I honestly would prefer that Amari and Alex and MCK fly as good as they possibly can, and I still win.
Yeah, right.
It's not like I'm like, I want you to suck, I want you to have the worst day ever. It's I want me to have the best day ever, and I want them to as well, and then just my best is better than theirs. So,
Yeah. Right.
they're like, at the end of the day, like we are cheering for each other, because it makes the best, and for one, makes the best competition, the most fair competition, and the most exciting competition. In that headspace, it's not like you want to kill the guy next to you. It's that as soon as, and that comes from like a sports psychology perspective, like as soon as you take the power away from you, and you're thinking about how other people are feeling and how other people are doing, the power is now out of your hands. If you're just thinking about you and you want the best for you, and you need to stay focused on what you can do and your capability, that gives you a lot of power on the flight deck. So I think most pilots have that headspace, which means we can still be friends on the outside. We still want to cheer for each other and give each other high fives. But like when it's on, like we are fierce competitors. We are passionate. I mean, you'll see us screaming and maybe saying some vulgar language to each other here and there. But it's because we care. And I think that's what's great about this year's roster. Everyone on this roster cares so much. And that's what makes it exciting competition. Yeah, we're friends. Some of us more than others. But at the end of the day, we're friends. And we're all in the same boat together. We are all, vested in the interest of DRL succeeding. We all want to win. Nobody's there not to win. There's going to be one winner and 11 losers, but we all want to win.
So I love that mentality because it's like it truly is an athlete's mentality, and that's something that I have a personal vendetta against people that most of my friends aren't interested in drone racing, and I'm like, yeah, these athletes, and they're like, are they athletes? I'm like, yeah, no, they're actually athletes. They're unbelievable. And I want to touch base on that for you as well, because I know roughly a year and a half ago, you started a journey and were posting so much more about health content, and you were going for marathon training and working out, eating healthy, all those things. How do you think training like an athlete has affected you on and off the course?
So I'll explain it like this. Like when I was preparing for my marathon, I was trying to eat good, perform, or like being super diligent about my exercise and trying to sleep good, like super, super diligent about my sleep, because all those things gave me the best chance to perform when I needed to.
Right.
And I prepare the exact same way when I'm going into a race. I'm trying to eat good, I'm trying to be working out, and I'm trying to be sleeping really good. And in addition to that, working on the technical skills. So just like I would for running, like working on my running technique and running form and having the best running shoes and, practicing my short runs, my long runs and all that stuff. Same thing for DRL. Like the training is the same, just in two different aspects or obviously two different skills. And sure, I totally understand the argument. It's not a sport. We're not athletes, whatever. Like I don't have people are going to think what they're going to think. And I really don't care. But if you just look at the inputs and the outputs for me training for a marathon and a race are the same. And the mindsets of me preparing for a race or for a marathon and a race are the same. Like they're identical, and you can do with that information what you will. But it's just, that's the mindset I found to be most successful when competing in anything.
Yeah. And then ultimately I think that the guys at the top, the guys at your level are all so unbelievable that any little change you can make to maybe get an edge on them, even if that is eating, sleeping, whatever the case is off the course, if that's going to affect it all on the course and make you just get that 1% better, worth every bit of effort there.
Yeah, I mean, I think doing anything, I would consider doing anything at the highest level, like an athlete sport type thing, because sure, if you're in a rec basketball league, you could be hungover and still go out there and do pretty good.
Right.
You could be eating potato chips every day and still make a few points. But you starting to eat really healthy and sleep really good and not be hungover, sure, you might do a little bit better. But when a professional athlete goes out to play basketball, they have to be feeling their best because literally everyone is doing all these tiny little things that add up to be performing at their best. And if you're not doing all those things, you'll be dead last. So that's kind of my take on it. And you see it in every other esport and sport and football and basketball and running. When you get to the top level of anything, those little things matter a lot. And all the top people are paying attention to those small details. But if you're doing it at a hobby level, it probably doesn't matter because everybody's just doing it at a hobby level for fun. So there's a big difference there.
And so much of that comes down to consistency over time of running takes discipline and practicing your drone takes discipline and it takes time. And at times, even though flying a drone is so much fun, you will be doing it to a level that is no longer as much fun because you have to have those reps in. Yeah. Explain to me when it comes to that repetition and discipline, how much your training has changed over the years, but also how you have been able to stay consistent from champions from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. You've been just so consistent over the career. Explain to me what those rhythms are that just help you be that consistent.
I think it's there's a really common life cycle of how people practice or get better at anything, when you're starting any new skill, it's very, very like, it's pretty much like instant gratification. Like you practice 5 minutes and you get really good. Another 5 minutes, really good, really, and like and then you're like, well, at this point, if I just put in 10 hours a day, I'm going to be the best in the world in about a week. And then very, very fast, it starts to taper out. And then most people get burnt out and then they stop practicing. And then they're like, okay, and I definitely went through that. That's not sustainable. That's not going to work. So how can I make every single hour or every single minute as productive as possible? And I come from like classical music. I come from playing the cello. Like I played in an orchestra growing up. And if you look at like professional musicians, like they will really only practice, or like you can, I've read a lot of things that like they really only practice for like 3 hours a day of like actually playing. And after that, it's really, really hard to have productive practice. Like if you want to be productive, you need to be very focused, very on the ball, thinking about what you're trying to improve, focusing on trying to improve that, not being distracted. And then after 3 hours, it starts to become mundane and it's not productive. And that doesn't mean that you can't like, you may have like a 5 hour practice session, but maybe you're studying your DVR for part of that. And maybe you're trying to improve your drone for part of that, or trying to, study, like actually look at the logs and see what's going on. But aside from actually flying, I really only think that like 3 to 4 hours a day is of focused practice is the most you can do. So I'd say that the change was like, I remember going to the field, getting there early and flying all day. But it's just not sustainable. And eventually it was just like, look, in hindsight, the last 5 hours of that was probably useless. Like I was just like, it was just mundane. I was just like, this is so fun, but I wasn't actually improving. But now when I go practice, it's like in the evening, I'm feeling good. I have good nutrition, worked out, good sleep. And I'm like, I want to work on this thing. And I go out there focused as hell on that thing.
Yeah.
And I improve a lot on that one thing. And just like any skill, as you get near the top, it's hard to like you don't double your skill. It doesn't happen. Right. You're looking for 1% increments. And that can be disheartening, honestly, because it feels like, I've plateaued. I'm not getting better. My videos now look maybe better than they were 2 months ago. But it's about the process. It's about just never losing that attention to detail. And so I would say that's how mine has developed over the years.
Yeah. What's your ratio of simulator flight to IRL flight?
I would say it depends on what's coming up. Like if I'm going to be competing and flying the sim a lot soon, then it definitely ramps up. And then also depends on like the season. So like in the winter, we're flying more inside or more on the sim. But in the summer, like it's mostly flying outside. So it varies. But it's, most of the time I'm always preparing for some kind of event or race. Yeah, it's just like it's dynamic depending on what's going on. But you can definitely learn a lot in the sim that is hard. I'd say at the beginning, the sim is very important because you can learn a lot by not breaking a lot. And then as you get better, now you actually have a pace and consistency. And now you can go trying to like basically translate that skill to real life skill. But if you're ever trying to learn something new, it's great to start that on the sim to get the foundation before you start to slide it over into real life. So it just depends where I'm at in my training.
Well, Evan, I really appreciate your time. You're an absolute legend in the world of drone racing. I genuinely think people will be talking about and watching your film for years to come in the world of drone racing. And so I appreciate your time. Is there anywhere that if somebody wanted to check out the pit stop, somebody wanted to see your content, whatever the case, give yourself a little shout out here?
All my content is under the name Heads Up FPV, so a lot of YouTube, Instagram. You can find me on Facebook over Evan Turner. But my content's definitely going to be ramping up. Educational stuff, racing stuff, trying to improve to benefit you all, to benefit the community, to see, the recipe for how I do the things that I do. In addition to that, you can support this vision and this brand and this movement by checking out 533. So it's fly533.com. And that's where all of my work is, comes to fruition through 533 in some capacity. So, I'm making content, but I'm also trying to build something. And that thing that's trying to be built is 533. So if you guys check it out and like anything, would of course appreciate your support. And if you have any questions about anything, then either contact support or reach out to me. I'm happy to help. But it's our 5-year anniversary today, and we got a long way to go.
If you guys want any of those links, they will be down in the description. You can go ahead and check that out. Evan, you're a stud. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck this year at DRL, MultiGP, DCL, all of it, man. Good luck.
Thank you.
Is there anything that I forgot to ask, or is there anything that you would have asked? Well, this interview's over, but I have more content coming out just like this very soon. If you're passionate about the drone industry and want to take a deeper dive, join my Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll get exclusive access to behind-the-scenes content, early access to interviews, and even a chance to have your questions featured on an upcoming episode with some of the top professionals in the drone world. Your support helps keep these conversations going and ensures that I can bring more of the insights that you want to hear directly from the people shaping the future of drones. So if you've got a burning question for the next guest or just want to be a part of the community, head on over to my Patreon. The link is down in the description. Your involvement makes all the difference. But that's all we have for you today. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Jordan Kyle, signing off.